At dinner, my sister stood up and said, "Rachel, go sit somewhere else. This table's for family, not adopted girls." Everyone laughed and nodded along. Then the waiter set down a $3,270 check right in front of me for their whole meal. I smiled, took a calm sip, and quietly covered the bill. But then a voice spoke up. "Wait just a second, please. Go find another table. This one's for family, not adopted girls." Can you imagine hearing those words from your own sister echoing through a fancy restaurant? My sister Victoria said that to me, and it was just the beginning of a night so humiliating, so utterly devastating, that it ended with a twist no one, especially not my family, ever saw coming. My name is Rachel, and I'm 27 years old. I've lived with this family for 22 years, ever since they adopted me, when I was 5. 22 years of being reminded I didn't belong, that I was different, that I was less than. The only person who ever truly made me feel like I mattered was Grandma Dorothy, my adoptive mother's mother. And that night, she was sitting at the far end of the table, watching with a strange expression on her face. "Victoria, that's enough," I said quietly, trying to maintain some dignity. "Oh, don't be so sensitive," my mother, Patricia, chimed in, waving her manicured hand dismissively. "We're just teasing. You know how Victoria is." Oh, I knew exactly how Victoria was. At 32, she perfected the art of making me feel small, all while maintaining the facade of family unity. Growing up, she got the best bedroom, the newest clothes, the expensive college education. I got hand-me-downs and community college. She got praised for mediocre achievements. I got criticized for excellence. "Sit down. Rachel," my father, Gregory, ordered. "You're making a scene." I sat, swallowing the protest, rising in my throat. This dinner was supposed to celebrate Victoria's latest business deal, some real estate investment my parents had helped finance. They were always helping Victoria. When I'd asked for a loan to start my graphic design business 3 years ago, they just laughed and told me to be realistic. The evening dragged on. Conversation flowed around me like I wasn't even there. Victoria bragged about her new Mercedes. Kenneth discussed his promotion at the bank. My parents beamed with pride, asking questions, offering congratulations. When I tried to mention the major client I'd just landed, a contract worth $50,000, my mother cut me off. "That's nice, dear. Kenneth, tell us more about your bonus." By the time dessert arrived, I'd retreated into myself, the familiar numbness settling over me. This was my role in the family. The outsider, the charity case, the one they kept around to feel good about themselves. Then the waiter approached with the check. My stomach dropped. He placed the leather folder directly in front of me. I stared at it, confused. "What's this?" I asked. Victoria's laugh was sharp and bright. "Oh, didn't we mention? You're paying tonight. Consider it your contribution to the family, since you're always taking and never giving." Taking, the word came out strangled. "I've never asked you for anything. The roof over your head growing up, the food, the clothes." Patricia ticked off items on her fingers. "We gave you everything, Rachel. The least you can do is buy us dinner." My hands trembled as I opened the folder. The total made my vision blur. $3,270. They'd ordered the most expensive wines, multiple appetizers, premium steaks, lobster tails. Kenneth had ordered 3 desserts just because he could. "I can't afford this," I whispered. "Of course you can." Victoria said sweetly, "You just told us about your big client. 50,000, wasn't it? This is nothing to you now." The truth was that $50,000 was spread over 6 months of work, and most of it was already allocated to business expenses, rent, and paying off the student loans my family had refused to help with. This single dinner would wipe out my savings. but I couldn't make another scene. Couldn't give them more ammunition to call me ungrateful, difficult, dramatic. With shaking hands, I pulled out my credit card and placed it in the folder. The waiter whisked it away, and I forced myself to smile, to sip my water, to pretend this wasn't devastating me. Victoria was already talking about their upcoming vacation to Tuscany. My parents were planning to join them. Nobody asked if I wanted to come. They never did. When the waiter returned with my card and receipt, I signed with numb fingers. $3,270 for the privilege of being humiliated by people who were supposed to love me. Well, that was lovely, Patricia said, dabbing her lips with her napkin. Same time next month. Next month. They expected this to become a regular thing. I opened my mouth to protest, to finally say enough was enough, when a voice cut through the chatter. Just a moment, please. Everyone fell silent. Grandma Dorothy, who'd been quiet all evening, was standing at her end of the table. At 78, she still commanded attention. Her silver hair perfectly styled, her posture straight as a rod. Something in her expression made my chest tighten. The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Grandma Dorothy had always been different from the rest of the family. While my parents and siblings treated me like an obligation, she'd been the one who showed up at my school plays, who remembered my birthday, who asked about my dreams. She was also the wealthiest person I'd ever known, a self-made billionaire who'd built a pharmaceutical empire from nothing. But lately, she'd been quieter, watching. I'd noticed her observing family gatherings with an intensity that made me wonder what she was thinking. "Mother, what is it?" Patricia asked, irritation creeping into her voice. We were just about to leave. "Sit down, all of you." Grandma Dorothy's voice carried an authority that made even my father straighten in his chair. "I have something to say, and you're going to listen." Victoria rolled her eyes, but stayed seated. Kenneth checked his phone under the table. My parents exchanged confused glances. Grandma Dorothy's gaze swept across each of them before landing on me. Something flickered in her eyes. Sadness, maybe, or disappointment in everyone else. "I've been watching this family for years," she began, her voice steady but cold. "Watching how you treat Rachel. How you've always treated her." "Mother, really?" Patricia protested. "This isn't the time." "Be quiet." The command was so sharp that my mother actually obeyed. I'm 78 years old, and I've spent the past few months thinking about my legacy, about where my money should go when I'm gone. The table went very still. My father's fork clinked against his plate as he set it down. Victoria's smug expression faltered. "We all know how this works," Grandma Dorothy continued. "The bulk of my estate goes to Patricia, then distributed among the grandchildren. That's what the current will says." I watched Victoria's face light up with greed. She'd been counting on that inheritance for years, planning elaborate purchases, making investments based on money she didn't even have yet. But I've had my lawyer draw up a new will. Grandma Dorothy pulled an envelope from her purse, signed, and notarized yesterday. The silence was suffocating. "You can't be serious," Kenneth said. "You're changing your will because of what?" "A stupid joke." "A joke." Grandma Dorothy's laugh was bitter. "I've watched you all mock and belittle Rachel for over 2 decades. I've watched you exclude her, humiliate her, treat her like she's less than human. And tonight you made her pay for your excess while you laughed about it. We were just having fun." Victoria protested, but her voice wavered. "Fun." Grandma Dorothy repeated the word like it tasted foul. "You think cruelty is fun? You think making someone feel worthless is entertainment." My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. Grandma Dorothy walked slowly around the table until she stood beside me. Her hand rested gently on my shoulder. "Rachel is the only one in this family who's shown true character," she said. She's worked for everything she has, built a business from nothing with no help from any of you. She's kind, talented, and resilient despite your best efforts to break her spirit. Mother, you're being dramatic, Gregory said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Grandma Dorothy's eyebrows rose. Patricia, when was the last time you asked Rachel about her life? Really asked and actually listened to the answer? Kenneth, have you ever congratulated your sister on her accomplishments? Ever acknowledged her success? Victoria, have you spent even one day treating Rachel like family instead of a servant? My sister's face flushed red with anger and embarrassment. Grandma Dorothy looked at each of them, her disappointment evident. You've all failed spectacularly. You took in a little girl who'd lost everything, and instead of giving her love and support, you've spent 22 years making her pay for the kindness you never actually showed. The weight of her words settled over the table like a heavy blanket. Other diners had stopped pretending not to listen. Wait staff hovered at a distance, sensing the drama. So, here's what's going to happen, Grandma Dorothy said, her voice gaining strength. My entire estate, every dollar, every property, every investment is going to Rachel. The explosion was immediate. What? Victoria shrieked, jumping to her feet. You can't do that. That's not fair. Kenneth slammed his hand on the table. Mother, think about what you're saying. Patricia pleaded. You're talking about billions of dollars. Rachel isn't even really family. Stop. Grandma Dorothy's command silenced them again. Rachel is more family than any of you have ever been. She's earned this not through blood, but through character, through being a better person than all of you combined. I sat frozen, unable to process what was happening. Billions of dollars. Grandma Dorothy's entire fortune. It was impossible, unreal, too enormous to comprehend. You're being manipulated. Gregory said desperately, Rachel must have done something. Rachel has done nothing but survive your abuse. Grandma Dorothy cut him off. And that ends tonight. She pulled out her phone and made a call. Thomas, it's Dorothy. Yes. File the new will immediately. Make sure it's ironclad and prepare the trust documents for Rachel. My family's faces ranged from shock to fury to disbelief. Victoria looked like she might actually faint. Kenneth's face had gone purple. My parents seemed to age a decade in seconds. This isn't over. Victoria hissed at me. We'll contest it. We'll fight you in court. Try it, Grandma Dorothy said calmly. I've made sure everything is completely legal, and I'm of sound mind, as a medical evaluation from this morning confirms. She planned this. Every detail. The explosion that followed was like nothing I'd ever witnessed. Victoria lunged across the table, her face contorted with rage. Kenneth grabbed her arm, but his own anger was barely contained. My parents sat in stunned silence, their carefully constructed world crumbling around them. You manipulative little bitch. Victoria snarled at me. You planned this. You've been playing the victim this whole time. Enough. Grandma Dorothy stepped between us. Rachel has done nothing wrong. She didn't even know about this until now. It was true. I was still reeling, my mind unable to grasp what had just happened. Billions of dollars. Grandma Dorothy's entire estate. Everything she'd built over her lifetime. Why are you doing this? Patricia's voice cracked, tears streaming down her face. I'm your daughter. Your blood. And you should be ashamed of how you've acted, Grandma Dorothy replied, her voice softer, but still firm. I gave you every advantage in life, Patricia, education, opportunities. And you took all of that and learned nothing about compassion or kindness. Instead, you passed your cruelty down to your own children. Gregory tried a different approach. Let's be reasonable. We can work this out. Maybe split the estate. There is nothing to work out, Grandma Dorothy said. The decision is made. My lawyers have everything in order. The trust is established. Rachel will receive everything when I pass, with immediate access to certain accounts starting tomorrow. Tomorrow, the word hung in the air. This wasn't some future promise. This was real, immediate, happening. Kenneth leaned forward, his voice low and threatening. You're making a huge mistake. Rachel doesn't know how to handle that kind of money. She'll blow through it in a year. Rachel has built a successful business on nothing, Grandma Dorothy interrupted. She's more financially responsible at 27 than any of you have ever been. She's had to be, because you never helped her. I found my voice, shaky and uncertain. Grandma, I don't understand. Why now? She turned to me, and her expression softened. Because I've watched you suffer long enough, sweetheart. I'm dying. The world tilted. What? The word barely came out. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. I have maybe 6 months, probably less. She said it so calmly, but I saw the pain beneath the composure. I found out 3 months ago, and I've spent that time getting my affairs in order, making sure my legacy goes to someone who deserves it. Tears blurred my vision. Grandma Dorothy was dying. The one person who'd ever truly loved me was leaving. Oh, don't cry, Rachel. She pulled me into a hug, and I breathed in her familiar perfume, lilac and vanilla. This isn't sad. This is justice. Around us, the restaurant had gone completely silent. Even the kitchen noise had died down. Everyone was watching this family implode in real time. You can't be serious about this. Patricia tried again, desperation making her voice shrill. Mother, please think about your grandchildren. Think about the family legacy. I am thinking about it, Grandma Dorothy said. That's exactly why I'm doing this. The family legacy should be compassion, hard work, and integrity. Rachel embodies all of that. The rest of you embody greed, cruelty, and entitlement. Victoria's hands were shaking. We'll sue. We'll prove you're not in your right mind. Good luck with that. Grandma Dorothy's smile was sharp. I have medical evaluations, psychological assessments, and testimony from dozens of witnesses about your treatment of Rachel over the years. My lawyer has been documenting everything for months. She'd been planning this carefully, methodically, protecting me, even as her own time ran short. I want to go home, I whispered. Of course. Grandma Dorothy kept her arm around me. Thomas is outside with the car. He'll take us both to my place. We have a lot to discuss. As we turned to leave, Kenneth blocked our path. This isn't fair. She's not even really one of us. Move. Grandma Dorothy's voice was ice. Or I'll have security remove you. He stepped aside, but the hatred in his eyes made me flinch. We walked through the restaurant in silence, every eye following us. The cool Seattle air hit my face as we stepped outside, and I gulped it down, trying to steady myself. A sleek black car waited at the curb. Thomas, Grandma Dorothy's driver of 30 years, opened the door with a knowing smile. Miss Rachel, welcome. Thomas knows everything, Grandma Dorothy said as we slid into the back seat. He's been helping me plan this for weeks. The car pulled away from the restaurant, leaving my family, former family, standing on the sidewalk in shock. Through the rear window, I saw Victoria screaming something, her face twisted with rage. Kenneth was on his phone, probably calling a lawyer. My parents stood together, looking lost and broken. I should have felt something. Guilt, maybe, or fear, but all I felt was numb exhaustion mixed with a strange sense of freedom. Are you really dying? I asked Grandma Dorothy, my voice small. Yes. She took my hand, her skin paper thin, but her grip surprisingly strong. But I'm not afraid. I've lived a full life, Rachel. Built an empire, raised a family, made my mark. Now I get to ensure that everything I've worked for goes to someone worthy. I don't know if I can do this. I admitted, I don't know how to be rich. I don't know how to run your companies. You'll learn, she said confidently. You're smart, hardworking, and you have good instincts. And you'll have an excellent team to guide you. I've made sure of that. The city lights blurred past the window as we drove toward her estate in Madison Park. What happens now? Now, Grandma Dorothy squeezed my hand. Now we prepare you for your new life, and we make absolutely certain that your family can never hurt you again. The next morning, I woke up in one of Grandma Dorothy's guest rooms, momentarily disoriented by the silk sheets and the view of Lake Washington through floor-to-ceiling windows. Then the memories crashed back. The restaurant, the bill, the announcement, everything. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since I turned it back on. 43 missed calls from Victoria, 27 from my mother, 16 from Kenneth. Dozens of texts ranging from pleading to threatening. I scrolled through them with a strange detachment. You're being selfish. Think about the family. Patricia, I'll destroy you in court. You won't see a penny. Victoria, we need to talk. This can still be fixed. Gregory, Grandma's clearly not thinking straight. Help us get her evaluated. Kenneth, I set the phone down and walked to the window. Grandma Dorothy's estate sprawled across 3 acres of prime Seattle real estate. The morning sun glinted off the lake, sailboats already dotting the water. This was mine now, or would be soon. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Miss Rachel, breakfast is ready, and Miss Dorothy would like to see you in the study. I found Grandma Dorothy sitting behind an enormous mahogany desk, looking surprisingly energetic despite yesterday's revelation about her health. Thomas stood nearby, and a distinguished-looking man in an expensive suit sat across from her. Rachel, this is Walter, my attorney, Grandma Dorothy said. We need to go over some things. Walter stood, shaking my hand with a firm grip. Miss Rachel, it's a pleasure. Your grandmother has spoken very highly of you. I sat down, feeling like I was in a dream. Walter opened a leather portfolio and began explaining the details of the trust, the companies, the investments. Numbers that seemed impossible swam before my eyes. $3 billion in liquid assets, $5 billion in property and investments, stakes in pharmaceutical companies, real estate developments, tech startups. The immediate access accounts activate today. Walter explained, $5 million for your personal use while the trust is being finalized. Your grandmother wanted to ensure you had resources right away. $5 million for immediate use. I felt dizzy. There's more, Grandma Dorothy said, her eyes sharp. Your family will try to contest this. They'll claim undue influence, diminished capacity, anything they can think of. We need to be prepared. What can they actually do? I asked. Walter leaned forward. Legally, not much. Miss Dorothy has documentation proving her sound mind, including evaluations from 3 separate doctors. The will is ironclad. However, they can make the process difficult, drag it out in court, create negative publicity. Let them try, Grandma Dorothy said firmly. I've been documenting their treatment of Rachel for years. Every cruel comment, every exclusion, every incident of financial abuse. If they want a court battle, I'll bury them with evidence. My phone buzzed again. Victoria. I silenced it. There's something else you need to know, Grandma Dorothy said, and something in her tone made me tense. Your adoption wasn't quite what you think it was. The room seemed to tilt. What do you mean? She pulled a folder from her desk drawer, sliding it across to me. When Patricia and Gregory adopted you, they received a substantial sum of money, $750,000 to be exact. It was meant to cover your care, education, everything you'd need growing up. I stared at the documents in the folder, bank statements, transfer records. They took money for adopting me from a trust set up by your birth parents, Grandma Dorothy confirmed. They died in a car accident when you were 5. They'd established a trust to ensure you were cared for. Patricia and Gregory were approved as adoptive parents and given access to those funds. My hands shook as I flipped through the papers. $750,000. And I'd worn secondhand clothes, gone to community college on student loans, been told the family couldn't afford to help me. They spent it all, I whispered, seeing the account statements. Vacations, cars, Victoria's private school tuition, Kenneth's college fund. They spent my money on everyone but me. Yes, Grandma Dorothy said quietly. I only discovered this myself 2 years ago. I've been investigating since then, gathering evidence. That's theft, Rachel. They stole from a child. The betrayal cut deeper than anything else. It wasn't just cruelty or favoritism. They'd profited from my loss, taking money meant for my care and using it to spoil their biological children while treating me like a burden. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked because I needed to be sure, needed all the documentation perfect and legal, and because she paused, looking older suddenly, because I knew that once you learned the truth, there would be no going back. Your relationship with them, toxic as it was, would be over completely. She was right. Any tiny part of me that had hoped for reconciliation, that had wondered if maybe I was too sensitive or ungrateful, died in that moment. They hadn't just been cruel. They'd been criminals. What do? I felt lost, overwhelmed. You let me handle it, Grandma Dorothy said. Walter has already filed a civil suit against Patricia and Gregory for misappropriation of trust funds. With interest over 22 years, they owe you approximately $2.3 million. My phone exploded with calls again. This time it was my father. Answer it, Grandma Dorothy said. Put it on speaker. Let's hear what he has to say. With shaking hands, I accepted the call. Rachel. Gregory's voice was desperate. Rachel, please, we need to talk. Your grandmother isn't thinking clearly. She seems perfectly clear to me, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. This is insane. You can't possibly think you deserve her entire fortune. You've been with us for 22 years, and suddenly you turn on us the moment money is involved. The moment money is involved. I repeated. You mean like the $750,000 you took for adopting me? The money you spent on everyone except me? Silence. I don't know what lies she's been telling you. Bank records don't lie, Dad. The word felt bitter. Walter has all the documentation. You stole from me. You both did. Patricia's voice came through the phone, shrill with panic. That money was for raising you, for housing you, feeding you. You gave me hand-me-downs and made me pay my own way through college. I said, meanwhile, Victoria got designer clothes and a full ride to a private university. Kenneth got a new car at 16. I got nothing. You're being ungrateful. Gregory tried. We gave you a home. You gave me a prison, I said. The words felt powerful, liberating. You made me feel worthless every single day. And you did it while spending money that was meant for me. We'll fight this. Patricia threatened. We'll take you to court. Please do, Grandma Dorothy cut in. I'd love to see you explain the financial records to a judge. Explain how you took money meant for a grieving 5-year-old and spent it on luxury vacations. The call ended abruptly. They'd hung up, probably to call their own lawyer. I felt Walter's hand on my shoulder. Miss Rachel, I know this is overwhelming, but you need to understand. You hold all the cards here. They have no legal ground to stand on. They'll try anyway, I said. Of course they will, Grandma Dorothy agreed. But they'll lose. And when they do, you'll never have to see them again. 3 days later, the story hit the media. somehow, and I suspected Victoria was behind it. The details of Grandma Dorothy's will change had leaked to the press. Billionaire disinherits family for adopted granddaughter screamed the headlines. My phone wouldn't stop ringing with reporters wanting statements. I'd moved into Grandma Dorothy's estate temporarily, unable to face my apartment where my family knew the address. Thomas had retrieved my things, and I was living in a strange bubble of luxury and chaos. The public reaction was divided. Some praised Grandma Dorothy for rewarding character over blood. Others called me a manipulative gold digger who'd seduced an elderly woman for her fortune. The comment sections were brutal. She must have been sleeping with the old woman's lawyer or something. Gold digger alert. This girl knew exactly what she was doing. Good for Dorothy. Family isn't blood. It's how you treat people. That adopted girl is going to blow through billions in a year. Watch. I tried to ignore it, but the words burrowed under my skin. Was I wrong to accept this? Should I have refused Grandma Dorothy's gift? Stop reading those, Grandma Dorothy said, finding me hunched over my laptop in the library. She looked frielier than she had days ago. The cancer clearly progressing. People will always have opinions. Let them talk. They're calling me terrible things. I said, they called me terrible things when I built my first company. She replied, settling into the chair beside me. Said I was too aggressive, too masculine, too ambitious. A woman couldn't possibly succeed in pharmaceuticals. I proved them wrong. She took my hand, her grip weaker now. You'll prove them wrong too, Rachel. Not by defending yourself, but by being exactly who you are, kind, hardworking, principled. That afternoon, Walter arrived with news. Patricia and Gregory have officially filed to contest the will. They're claiming diminished capacity and undue influence. Let me see, Grandma Dorothy said. Walter handed over the legal documents. I read over her shoulder, my anger building with every word. They claimed I'd isolated Grandma Dorothy from her family, that I'd manipulated a sick elderly woman, that I'd taken advantage of her declining mental state. This is ridiculous. I said, I didn't even know about the cancer until that night. We have evidence proving otherwise, Walter assured me, including testimony from medical staff, friends, business associates. They're grasping at straws. But something in Walter's expression made me nervous. What aren't you telling me? He exchanged a glance with Grandma Dorothy. Victoria has hired a private investigator. They're digging into your background, looking for anything they can use against you. My stomach dropped. There's nothing to find. We know that, Grandma Dorothy said, but they'll try to create something, twist innocent situations, take things out of context. As if on cue, my phone rang. An unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Rachel, it's so good to finally reach you. The voice was unfamiliar, syrupy sweet. I'm Jennifer Cole from Seattle Scene magazine. I'd love to chat about your relationship with Dorothy. No comment, I said, moving to hang up. Wait, I just have a few questions about the allegations. What allegations? About your business? There are questions about where you got your startup capital. Some people are suggesting Dorothy funded it years ago, that you've been planning this takeover for a long time. My blood ran cold. That's not true. I built my business with my own money. Can you prove that? Do you have documentation? I hung up, my hands shaking. They're trying to create a narrative. Walter said grimly that you've been grooming Dorothy for years, that everything you've accomplished was really her money. But it wasn't. I have loan documents, business records. We know, Grandma Dorothy soothed, and we'll prove it. But, Rachel, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get worse before it gets better. She was right. By evening, social media was flooded with theories, anonymous accounts, probably my family, were spreading rumors that I'd failed out of community college, I'd graduated with honors, that my business was failing, it was thriving, that I'd had multiple affairs with wealthy older men I'd barely dated in years. The cruelest rumor was that I'd somehow caused my birth parents' death to access their trust fund. I was 5 years old when they died, but facts didn't matter to internet trolls. I closed my laptop, feeling sick. Miss Rachel, Thomas appeared at the library door. There are reporters at the gate, quite a few of them. I walked to the window overlooking the front of the estate. News vans lined the street. Cameras pointed at the house. My private life was now public spectacle. This is what they want, I said quietly. They want me to crack, to do something that makes me look bad. Then don't give them the satisfaction, Grandma Dorothy said. She looked exhausted, but her eyes were still fierce. We fight this the right way, with truth, with evidence, with dignity. That night, I barely slept again. I kept replaying moments from my childhood. Patricia telling me I was lucky they'd taken me in. Victoria laughing when I didn't get invited to her birthday party. Kenneth pushing me into the pool at a family gathering while everyone laughed. Every moment of exclusion, every casual cruelty, all building to this moment. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You're going to regret this. We'll destroy you. V. Victoria, threatening me from a burner phone. I screenshotted it and sent it to Walter. Evidence. Grandma Dorothy had taught me well. The next morning brought a new development. Kenneth showed up at the estate, somehow talking his way past security. I found him in the foyer arguing with Thomas. I need to see Rachel, he was saying. Please, it's important. It's okay, Thomas, I said, though my heart was racing. I'll talk to him. Kenneth looked terrible, unshaven, his clothes wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. Nothing like the polished banker I'd grown up with. Rachel, please, he said, we need to fix this. The family is falling apart. The family fell apart a long time ago, I said. You're just noticing now because money's involved. That's not fair. I know we weren't always. I know we could have been better to you, but this, he gestured around the estate, cutting us out completely. That's too far. Too far. My voice rose despite my attempt to stay calm. Kenneth, you pushed me into a pool when I was 12, and I nearly drowned because I didn't know how to swim. Nobody taught me because swimming lessons were for real family. Victoria told everyone at school I was adopted because my real parents didn't want me. Mom forgot my birthday 3 years in a row. Dad told me I should be grateful for scraps. And you all spent $750,000 that was meant for me while I worked 3 jobs to pay for community college. Kenneth's face went white. I didn't know about that money. You didn't know because you never asked. None of you ever asked about me, about my life, about whether I was okay. The words poured out. Years of pain, finally finding voice. You want to fix the family? There's nothing to fix. It was broken from the start. Get out. My voice was steady now. Cold. Get out of this house and don't come back. You're making a mistake, Kenneth said, but there was no conviction in it. When Grandma's gone, you'll have no one. I already had no one. I said, at least now I'll have resources to build an actual life. Thomas escorted Kenneth out. Through the window, I watched my brother walk to his car. Shoulders slumped. For a moment, just a moment, I felt a pang of something. Not quite guilt, but a sad acknowledgement of what could have been if they'd chosen differently. That afternoon, Walter called an emergency meeting. His expression was grave. Victoria's legal team has found something, he said. Or rather, they claim to have found something. They're alleging that you forged documents related to your business, specifically contracts with clients. They're trying to paint you as dishonest, someone capable of manipulating Dorothy. That's insane. I said, all my contracts are legitimate. We know that, but they're filing a motion to delay the proceedings pending an investigation. It's a stall tactic, but it could work. Grandma Dorothy's hand slammed on the desk, startling us both. Despite her frailty, anger gave her strength. Absolutely not, Walter. File an emergency motion to expedite. I want this settled before. She didn't finish the sentence. Before she died. Dorothy, you should rest, Walter began. I'll rest when this is done, she snapped. My granddaughter is being attacked by vultures masquerading as family. We end this now. Walter nodded and pulled out his phone, stepping away to make calls. Grandma Dorothy turned to me, her eyes fierce despite the exhaustion evident in her face. Rachel, I need you to do something for me. Anything. I'm holding a press conference tomorrow. I'm going to tell the truth, all of it, about the stolen money, the abuse, everything. But I need you to be there with me. The world needs to see you, hear from you directly. Terror gripped me. I can't. I'll say something wrong. You'll be perfect, she said firmly, because you'll tell the truth. That's all you need to do. That night, I barely slept again. I kept rehearsing what I might say, then abandoning it. How do you sum up 22 years of pain in a few minutes? How do you make strangers understand? The press conference was scheduled for 2 p.m. at Grandma Dorothy's downtown office. When Thomas drove us there, the media presence was overwhelming. Cameras everywhere, reporters shouting questions, a crowd of onlookers documenting everything on their phones. Walter had prepared a statement, but when I looked at Grandma Dorothy, really looked at her, I saw how much this was costing her. She was dying, using her last reserves of strength to fight for me. The conference room was packed, cameras rolling, lights bright, the air thick with anticipation. Grandma Dorothy sat beside me at a long table, Walter on her other side. She looked small but unbreakable. Thank you for coming, she began, her voice surprisingly strong. I'm here to address the rumors and allegations surrounding my will and my granddaughter, Rachel. She laid it all out, the documentation of abuse, the stolen trust fund money, years of emotional and financial manipulation. She showed bank records, medical evaluations proving her sound mind, testimony from business associates about her mental acuity, documentation of the abuse I'd suffered, photos, recordings, witness statements, and finally, Victoria's viral video confession. Some have suggested Rachel manipulated me, Grandma Dorothy said, her gaze sweeping the room. The truth is the opposite. My biological family manipulated her. They took a grieving 5-year-old child and used her as a punching bag for their own inadequacies. They stole from her, belittled her, and made her feel worthless. Despite all of that, Rachel built a life, a successful business. She became kind, compassionate, hardworking, everything they are not. Then she gestured to me. Rachel would like to say a few words. My mouth went dry. Every eye in the room was on me. I could see the judgment, the curiosity, the skepticism. I cleared my throat. I don't know what to say that my grandmother hasn't already said. I never wanted this attention. I never wanted to be rich or famous or involved in legal battles. My voice steadied as I continued. I just wanted a family that loved me. I wanted parents who cared if I was okay, siblings who celebrated my successes instead of mocking them. I wanted to belong somewhere. I looked directly at the cameras. I know some of you think I'm a gold digger, that I manipulated a dying woman for money, but I didn't even know about the inheritance until that night at the restaurant. I didn't know my grandmother was sick. I didn't know about the stolen trust fund money. All I knew was that once again, My family was humiliating me and demanding I pay for the privilege. Tears threatened, but I pushed through. My grandmother is giving me her fortune because she believes in who I am, not because I asked for it. And I'm going to honor that trust by being exactly who she sees. Someone who builds things, helps people, and refuses to be cruel just because it's easier. The questions came fast and furious after that. Reporters shouting, cameras flashing, but Walter fielded them expertly. And Grandma Dorothy sat beside me, her hand finding mine under the table. As we were wrapping up, Victoria burst through the doors. Security moved to stop her, but she was already shouting, "This is all lies. She's brainwashed you all." Victoria's makeup was smeared. Her designer dress wrinkled. She looked unhinged. "I'm the real victim here. That adopted brat has stolen my inheritance." The cameras swiveled to her, capturing every second of her meltdown. "Miss Victoria," a reporter called out, "what about the allegations that your parents stole trust fund money meant for Rachel?" "That money was ours. We earned it by raising her ungrateful ass." "You earned $750,000 for treating a child like garbage," another reporter asked. Victoria realized her mistake too late. The cameras had caught everything. Her admission, her rage, her complete lack of remorse. "Get her out of here," Walter said to security as Victoria was escorted out, still screaming threats. I watched the reporters frantically typing on their phones. The narrative had just shifted. Victoria had given them the villain they needed, and it wasn't me. Grandma Dorothy squeezed my hand. "Well," she said quietly, "I don't think we could have planned that better if we tried." Despite everything, I almost smiled. Victoria had destroyed herself, and she'd done it on camera for the world to see. The video of Victoria's meltdown went viral within hours. By evening, it had been viewed over 10 million times. News outlets played it on loop, dissecting every word, every unhinged expression. Social media exploded with commentary. Did she really just admit they took money for raising an adopted kid? This family is toxic. Rachel deserves everything. Victoria just destroyed her own case in under 60 seconds. Brilliant. That look on her face when she realized what she said, priceless. Public opinion shifted overnight. What had been a divided conversation became a landslide of support for me and condemnation for my family. Memes spread. Commentary videos analyzed the situation. Legal experts weighed in, all agreeing that Victoria's admission had essentially torpedoed any chance of contesting the will. I watched it all from Grandma Dorothy's study, still processing. Walter sat across from me, looking pleased. "Their legal case just collapsed," he said. "Victoria's admission that they earned the trust fund money by raising you is essentially a confession to misappropriation of funds. Combined with the documentation we already have, they have no leg to stand on." "What happens now?" I asked. "Now their lawyers will try to do damage control, but it's too late. The court hearing is in 3 days. I'd be shocked if the judge doesn't rule in our favor immediately." He paused. "There's also the criminal aspect. The district attorney's office has reached out. They're considering fraud charges against Patricia and Gregory. Criminal charges. My parents could go to prison." Grandma Dorothy entered the study, moving slowly with Thomas supporting her arm. She declined rapidly since the press conference, the effort having drained her reserves, but her eyes were still sharp. "Don't look so worried," she said, settling into her chair. "They made their choices. Now they face the consequences." "They're still my parents," I said quietly, "or they were supposed to be." "They were never your parents," Grandma Dorothy said firmly. "Parents protect their children. Love them. Support them. What Patricia and Gregory did was exploitation, pure and simple." My phone buzzed. Another message. but this one made my blood run cold. I know where you live now. This isn't over. V. I showed it to Walter, who immediately made a call. I'm getting a restraining order filed today and increasing security at the estate. She's desperate, Grandma Dorothy observed. Desperate people do dangerous things. She was right. Over the next 2 days, Victoria's behavior became increasingly erratic. She showed up at my old apartment building, screaming at tenants. She posted long, rambling rants on social media, each one more unhinged than the last. She claimed I'd used witchcraft to manipulate Grandma Dorothy, that I was part of a conspiracy, that she was the real victim of elder abuse. Each post only made things worse for her. The public watched her self-destruct in real time, and any sympathy that might have existed evaporated. Kenneth tried a different approach. He went on a local news program, presenting himself as the reasonable middle ground. "Look, I think there were mistakes made on both sides," he said earnestly to the camera. "Yes, maybe we weren't as welcoming to Rachel as we should have been, but to cut the entire family out over childhood disagreements, that seems extreme." The interviewer wasn't buying it. "Mr. Kenneth, are you aware that your parents received $750,000 intended for Rachel's care, which they allegedly spent on your education and your sister's?" Kenneth's composure cracked. That money was for the whole family. Rachel benefited from it, too. She wore hand-me-downs while your sister got designer clothes. She took out loans for community college while you attended a private university fully funded. How exactly did she benefit? Kenneth ended the interview early, but the damage was done. The public saw through him. My father tried yet another tactic, appealing to sympathy. He gave a tearful interview about how he'd loved me like a daughter, how this was breaking his heart, how families should forgive each other. "We made mistakes," Gregory said, his voice breaking. "What parent hasn't? But to be cut off completely, to be accused of theft, it's destroying us. Patricia can barely get out of bed. Kenneth's marriage is suffering. Victoria's having a breakdown. All because we weren't perfect." The interviewer, the same one who dismantled Kenneth, showed no mercy. "Mr. Gregory, you're describing what you did as not being perfect. But investigators have documented years of emotional abuse, financial exploitation, and systematic exclusion of Rachel from family activities. This goes beyond imperfection. That's not abuse. That's just family dynamics. Every family has issues. Every family doesn't steal $750,000 from a child." The interviewer shot back. "My father walked out, too. But my mother's approach was the most calculated. Patricia hired a PR firm and gave a carefully crafted interview to a sympathetic journalist. She wore a simple dress, minimal makeup, positioned herself in soft lighting. She cried at all the right moments. I loved Rachel from the moment we brought her home," Patricia said, dabbing her eyes. "She was this beautiful, broken little girl who'd lost everything. I wanted to give her a family, a home, love. Yes, we were stricter with her than with our biological children. Maybe that was wrong, but we were trying to prepare her for a hard world. We knew she'd face challenges as an adopted child, and we wanted her to be strong." The journalist ate it up. "And the money? That money was meant for her care, and that's what we used it for. Housing, food, utilities. Raising a child is expensive. Maybe we should have documented every expense. But we were a family, not a business." She looked directly into the camera. "Rachel, if you're watching, please know I love you. I always have. Can we please just talk? Without lawyers, without the media, just mother and daughter." I watched the interview with Grandma Dorothy and Walter. When it ended, I felt sick. "She's good," Walter admitted. "This is the most sympathetic they've looked since this started." "She's a liar," I said flatly. "She never loved me. This is just another manipulation." I know, Grandma Dorothy said, but some people will believe her. The question is, do you care? Did I? A week ago, I might have cared desperately. I'd have wanted everyone to know the truth, to see Patricia for what she really was. But now, no, I said, I don't care what strangers think. The people who matter know the truth. Grandma Dorothy smiled. Good girl. The court hearing arrived on a gray Seattle morning. The courthouse was surrounded by media, protesters holding signs both for and against me, curiosity seekers hoping for a glimpse of the drama. Walter had arranged for us to enter through a private entrance, but I could still hear the noise outside. Grandma Dorothy looked frail in her wheelchair. We'd finally convinced her to use one, but her spine was still straight. I held her hand as we entered the courtroom. My family was already there. Patricia, Gregory, Kenneth, and Victoria sat at the defendant's table with their team of lawyers. Patricia had maintained the soft, sympathetic appearance from her interview. Gregory looked tired and defeated. Kenneth wouldn't meet my eyes. But Victoria stared at me with pure hatred. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Morrison, entered, and everyone rose. This is a hearing regarding the will of Dorothy Hayes and the contest filed by Patricia Hayes and family. Judge Morrison began. I've reviewed the documentation submitted by both parties. Counsel, your opening statements. The family's lawyer went first, a slick man named Robert, who argued that Grandma Dorothy had been unduly influenced, that her illness had impaired her judgment, that the will should be set aside in favor of the previous version. Then Walter stood. He didn't argue or plead. He simply presented facts. Bank records showing the stolen trust fund money. Medical evaluations from 3 separate doctors confirming Grandma Dorothy's sound mind. Testimony from business associates about her mental acuity. Documentation of the abuse I'd suffered. Photos, recordings, witness statements. And finally, Victoria's viral video confession. Your Honor, Walter concluded, this is not a case of undue influence. This is a case of a woman choosing to leave her estate to someone who deserves it, and a family angry that their victim has finally escaped their control. Patricia's lawyer tried to counter, but Judge Morrison cut him off. I've seen enough, she said. The evidence is overwhelming. Miss Dorothy Hayes was clearly of sound mind when she executed her new will. The documentation of abuse is extensive and credible, and the admission by Victoria Hayes that the family earned money meant for Rachel essentially confirms the allegations of financial exploitation. My heart began to race. Furthermore, Judge Morrison continued, the behavior exhibited by the contesting parties during these proceedings, including threats, harassment, and public defamation, only reinforces that Miss Dorothy's decision was correct. A family that truly loved Rachel would never have treated her this way, before or after the will change. Victoria stood up, unable to contain herself. This is bullshit. You can't. Sit down. Judge Morrison commanded, or I'll hold you in contempt. Victoria sat, but her fury was palpable. I'm ruling in favor of the will as executed. Judge Morrison declared, the contest is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, I'm ordering Patricia and Gregory Hayes to pay restitution for the misappropriated trust funds, $750,000 plus interest over 22 years, totaling approximately $2.3 million. They have 90 days to pay in full. The courtroom erupted. Patricia collapsed in her chair, sobbing. Gregory looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 seconds. Kenneth put his head in his hands. Victoria started screaming obscenities until bailiffs escorted her out. I sat frozen, unable to process that it was over. We'd won. Completely. Decisively. Irrevocably. Grandma Dorothy squeezed my hand. It's done, sweetheart. You're free. Media swarmed us as we left the courthouse, but Walter and Thomas created a barrier. I heard the questions being shouted. How did I feel? What would I do with the money? Did I have a message for my family? But I didn't answer. I just helped Grandma Dorothy into the car and let Thomas drive us away. Back at the estate, Grandma Dorothy was exhausted but satisfied. I can die happy now, she said, and the words hit me like a physical blow. Don't say that, I whispered. Please. Oh, Rachel. She cupped my face with her thin hands. I'm not afraid. I got to see justice done. I got to know my fortune will be used for good. That's more than most people get. Over the next 3 weeks, I watched Grandma Dorothy fade. She slipped in and out of consciousness, sometimes lucid, sometimes lost in memories. I stayed by her side, holding her hand, telling her about my plans for the foundation. I wanted to start something to help adopted children who were being abused or exploited. That's perfect, she murmured during one of her clearer moments. Help others like you break the cycle. I will. I promised. I'll make you proud. You already have. Her smile was peaceful. You survived them, Rachel. You stayed kind when they were cruel. You worked hard when they tried to break you. You're everything I hoped you'd be. She died on a Tuesday morning with me holding her hand and the sun streaming through the window. Her last words were, "Thank you for being my real family." I stayed with her for a long time after, crying for the woman who'd saved me, who'd loved me, who'd given me a future. The only grandmother I'd ever really had. The funeral was private, just me, Thomas, Walter, and a few of Grandma Dorothy's close friends. My family wasn't invited, though Patricia tried to crash it and was turned away by security. In the weeks that followed, the full transfer of assets was completed. I was now the sole heir to a $3 billion fortune. The number was still incomprehensible, but I was determined to honor Grandma Dorothy's legacy. The first thing I did was establish the Dorothy Hayes Foundation for Adopted Children, not because it sounded good or made me look charitable, but because I knew firsthand how many kids were trapped in situations like mine. The foundation would provide legal support, counseling, emergency housing, and educational funding for adopted children suffering abuse or exploitation. The second thing I did was hire an excellent management team for Grandma Dorothy's companies. I wasn't ready to run billion-dollar corporations, but I could learn. I attended every meeting, asked questions, studied at night. Slowly, I began to understand the empire she'd built. My family's downfall was swift and brutal. Unable to pay the $2.3 million in restitution, Patricia and Gregory were forced to sell their house, their cars, everything of value. They moved into a small apartment in a rough neighborhood. Ironic, considering they'd always looked down on people they deemed beneath them. Gregory faced fraud charges for the trust fund theft and was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Patricia received 2 years. Kenneth, who'd benefited from the stolen money through his education, was required to pay back his portion, approximately $400,000. His marriage collapsed under the financial strain, and last I heard, he was working 2 jobs to make the payments. But Victoria's fate was the most satisfying. Her viral meltdown had destroyed any credibility she had. Her husband divorced her, taking their house and most of their assets. She'd invested heavily in a restaurant venture that failed spectacularly, leaving her deep in debt. The private investigator she'd hired to dig up dirt on me was now suing her for unpaid fees. She tried to write a tell-all book, but publishers rejected it after fact-checkers found it full of lies. She'd attempted to start a YouTube channel, but the comments were so brutal, she deleted it. She'd even tried to reconcile with me, not out of genuine remorse, but desperate hope I'd give her money. I'd read her email once. "Rachel, I know we had our differences, but we're still sisters. Family forgives family. I'm struggling right now, and I know you're doing well. Maybe we could meet for coffee, talk about the past, and build a future together. I deleted it without responding. 6 months after Grandma Dorothy's death, I stood in the foundation's new headquarters, a beautiful building in downtown Seattle dedicated to helping children like I'd been. The walls were covered with photos of kids we'd already helped, stories of escape, and new beginnings. Thomas stood beside me, having accepted a position as the foundation's operations director. Miss Dorothy would be proud, he said. I hope so, I replied. My phone buzzed. Another message from my family. They never stopped trying. This one was from Kenneth. Rachel, Mom and Dad are struggling. Dad's in prison. Mom's barely surviving. I know you're angry, but they're still your parents. Can't you find it in your heart to help? I typed my response carefully. They were never my parents. They were people who took money to raise me and instead used me as a punching bag for their inadequacies. I owe them nothing, but I'll make you a deal. I'll donate the exact amount they stole from me, $750,000, to a fund helping adopted children escape abusive families, in their names. That's the only legacy they'll have. I hit send and blocked his number. A year later, I was featured in a business magazine, not as the adopted girl who inherited billions, but as a CEO running multiple successful companies and a growing foundation that had helped over 500 children. The article focused on my work, my vision, my accomplishments. There was a small mention of my family drama, but it was in the past now. The narrative had shifted. I wasn't the victim anymore, wasn't the gold digger or the manipulator. I was simply Rachel, a woman who'd survived, thrived, and chosen to help others do the same. I'd heard through mutual acquaintances that Victoria was working in telemarketing, barely making ends meet. That Patricia, released from prison, was living in a woman's shelter. That Gregory was still incarcerated, his health failing. That Kenneth was bankrupt, his expensive education worthless without the connections and money that had always propped him up. Part of me, the part that remembered being a hurt little girl, felt a twinge of something. Not quite satisfaction, not quite pity, just acknowledgement that actions have consequences. That cruelty eventually circles back. My family never recovered from their fall. Victoria's attempts to rebuild her life repeatedly failed, each venture collapsing under the weight of her reputation and poor decisions. Patricia and Gregory lived out their remaining years in poverty and isolation. Their biological children, too consumed with their own struggles, couldn't help. Kenneth's pride never allowed him to accept jobs he deemed beneath him, keeping him perpetually on the edge of financial ruin. They'd built their lives on a foundation of cruelty and entitlement, and when that foundation crumbled, they had nothing left to stand on. As for me, I built something lasting from the ashes of that painful past. Each child the foundation saved, each life changed, each cycle of abuse broken. That was my real inheritance from Grandma Dorothy, not the money, but the understanding that sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, but becoming everything they said you couldn't be, and watching them destroy themselves while you're busy building something beautiful. That was simply justice taking its natural course. If you've ever felt like the underdog in your family or watched others get handed opportunities you had to fight for, what did you do? How did you find your strength? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know.